Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing Terry Jones' Medieval Lives. This was a book that I read because I have recently been on a little bit of a medieval history kick, if you can't tell, and this was one that I thought might be an interesting complement to some of the stuff that I am reading. So I decided to give it a read. It took me about a week to read because I've just been busy with a lot of other things, but I finished it and I am ready to review. So as the title suggests, this is an overview of medieval life, what medieval life was like, and whenever you're talking about something that has such a broad range of dates, so the Middle Ages, let's loosely bound it by saying 500 to 1500, and covering a wide range of geographical locations, authors usually have to make choices about what they're going to include and what they're going to cut from their book. That makes sense. So in this case, the author has chosen to take an approach where he looks at medieval life primarily in England/Western Europe. There's not a lot from other places, and he does this by looking at station of life, I guess you could say. So sometimes there are different divisions that we can put in society. I've seen this used in other medieval books, and Terry Jones in this one uses a different division than one I've seen before, but I think it's one that makes sense. So they're kind of divided between rules, or not rules, your economic station. Some of them are job prospects. I'll just read the different divisions that he goes through and it will make more sense. So chapter 1 is the peasant, which I would describe as more of an economic category. 2 is the minstrel, which would be more of a job, more of an employment kind of category. 3 is the outlaw, which is almost a legal category in my mind. 4 is a monk, which is again occupational, although there are some economic considerations with monks. 5 is the philosopher, which I would put more with the occupation and occupational category. 6 is a knight, which is occupation, but also implies a certain level of status in society, part of a hierarchy that exists. 7 is damsel. This would just be based on your gender, so the damsel, but there also I feel like is a level of economic grouping in that too. Your average peasant woman I would not call a damsel. And 8 is king, which is a very, very specific and narrow category. So he's using these categories to, he's using these categories to group medieval society and is talking about what life would be like for each of those categories. So each station or each grouping of people includes some specific or some general facts, as well as some specific anecdotes. And that's the setup of the book. The book is definitely not very heavily academic. It's not geared for someone who has deep understanding of the era or is looking for a really deep dive into any of these topics. It's designed to be for the casual reader who wants to learn a little bit more about this era. And I think by combining some general facts with a healthy dose of anecdotes, it keeps things really interesting for the reader. So it was again very high level. There wasn't a lot of deep dives into anything, but for me, the anecdotes are really, really interesting. I think sometimes when we stick to the high level, this king ruled from here to here, and this king ruled from here to here, and they fought, and this is the land that was lost or won. That's an important part of history, but the anecdotes kind of make it come to life as you see other people from a different period of time acting in a way that you recognize as a human. So you say, oh, that is almost, it's human behavior. It wasn't just this concept, that is the real person from the 1450s doing this thing. And so I think anecdotes can be really powerful, and I think they also really complement a book like this, which is designed to an audience that maybe isn't looking for something too technical. So again, not very heavy on the academics, but very, very interesting anecdotes throughout. I did want to share one of my favorite anecdotes, which I've marked in here, and this was in the section on, I think it was the outlaw. Yes. So again, a combination of anecdote and fact. The author spent some time discussing how people would be judged. So if you were accused of a crime, there would be a traveling judge. Here's what's being talked about. And the idea of a jury is different from the concept that we have of a jury, at least here in the United States. So here in the United States, you can have a jury trial with your peers. And those are just people who are going to listen to facts and then decide your fate. Well, in this medieval England time period, your jury wasn't there to just hear facts. It says here, the juries who laid accusations and tried cases were made up of people who supposedly knew what would happen. So these are maybe your witnesses. These were not the unbiased, hopefully unbiased, not partial individuals listening to a trial. And that's very different from today in when you go to a jury, if you've ever had to sit on jury duty, they try to toss out people who might be potentially biased in favor of one side or the other. Well, in this case, the juries were the ones who were reporting all of it. And then my favorite section is right here. So the jury would probably would be in charge of saying things or like explaining the case to this judge that would come around, and then a penalty would be assessed if required. That's a very basic understanding. It also meant, this is me quoting now, it also meant that people might not be convicted even in the face of plainest evidence if a jury believed that hanging would be unjust. So maybe something actually did happen, but the jury believed that the punishment for the crime would be too severe, and so they didn't want the person doing that. One jury claimed that when playing ball, the ball had hit an unseen barber's hand so that he cut his customer's throat. Another declared, apparently with a straight face, that the deceased walked backwards into the path of an arrow. In other words, the jury would just say something that was obviously false, but that would ensure that their person couldn't be convicted and then be hung, because maybe they thought, okay, that person really did cut this person's throat, but the customer he cut was a really horrible person, and really the society's much better without him, so we don't want to get him convicted. I don't know what happened in that specific case, but it seems like a little bit of medieval jury nullification, which I felt like was really, really interesting and fun. So I felt like that was just a sample of the kind of way that the author is mixing anecdotes with facts in this book. I don't know why I can't speak today. I do recommend this book. I think it's fun. I recommend it in tandem with other medieval books. I think like if you're already on a history kick, this could be a fun thing to fill in the blank or provide some fun stories. Or if you actually want to get into medieval history, this could also be an interesting place to start. It does have a narrow scope. It doesn't go very academic, but those could be positives or pros for someone looking to read a book that is on medieval life without devoting 1,000 pages to it. So yeah, I think this could be a fun book. I had a fun time reading it. I learned a lot of fun anecdotes, and I think it's just a good introduction to the topic. If you've read Terry Jones' Medieval Lives, please let me know what you thought of the book. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.